one traumatic brain injury slash concussion actually will increase your risk of another one in the future. And then those increased TBIs also increase your risk of developing Alzheimer's later in life. Right. And once again, like I say, for me, my philosophy has always been hashtag self care is self care. So because, like I said, I've looked at all these thousands and millions of cells under the microscope, I'm always focused on how can we protect each and every one of our cells and still live the life that we're living.
Everything is connected, and I'm here to tell you how. I'm Dr. Laura Hanson with Connect My Brain. This podcast is for moms who are concerned about their child's development. The brain impacts our mind, body, and overall health. I explain how your brain is wired, what happens when it's out of balance, and how early childhood development not only impacts your child, but can affect you as an adult years later. Want to know how to improve your life? Join me and learn about your amazing brain and what it can do for you. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Laura with Connect My Child's Brain, but I like to add Connect My Brain, Connect Your Brain. We can all connect our brain. So we're so glad that you're tuning in today. We have another very special guest. I'm so excited to hear her story. This is Dr. Bhanote. Dr. Bhanote, thank you so much for joining us today. Where are you located?
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you on connect your brain and your child's brain and the adult brain, all of that. And I am currently based in Florida.
Oh, what part?
I'm in the Northeast, just outside of Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, I'm going to Jacksonville the end of August for a conference, and I grew up in Hollywood, Florida.
Oh, very good. Now I'm curious what conference you're going to.
I'm speaking at the 2026 Balance Conference for the Neuroinfinity, which is a diagnostic tool that literally measures the stress response.
Lovely. Okay. Well, I will be
Look, I'll
here.
make sure you get some information in
Yeah,
case you're interested, okay?
definitely.
So we were chatting before we got everybody connected right now, and I think you have an amazing story, and I don't even know all the details of it, but I really love to focus in the brain. And there's so many things that can happen to the brain, from mild injury to traumatic injury. And these can have such a long lasting impact on a person's life. And I would love for you to share your story and then tell us about your book and your supplement. And then time permitted, we'll go into some other things.
So my story, I've got lots of stories. So I think the one you're referring to is something that happened to me quite recently. So during the pandemic, everybody was, everybody had their own experience during the pandemic, whether for some it was not good, for some it was great. For me personally, up to a point, I loved it because this was like the first time in my, decades long career of being a physician where the hospitals were closed, the operating rooms were closed, and being a physician who's been diagnosing disease under the microscope for decades, if there's no operations, there's no diagnosis for me to create. And so it was the first time where I was like, "Oh, I've got some time on my hands," right? And
Yeah.
so I used this time to, I would be going for 4 or 5 mile long walks, listening to podcasts and audiobooks and, just doing the things you don't have time for when you have to be in the hospital by 7 a.m. because there's a surgery happening at 7:30. So on one of those walks, and I used to take the same route every day through a residential neighborhood, my neighborhood houses, that's it, right? However, on one of these days, I'm walking and it was a Saturday morning. I remember it was sunny, like 9 o'clock in the morning. All I had on me was my cell phone because I'm listening to an audiobook and my headphones. And I feel this like pressure on my head, like something had almost fallen out of the sky and fell on my head, and I'm going, "Oh my god, like, what just happened? Did I get shot?" Like, I didn't know what happened.
Mm,
And I was wearing a baseball cap, so I took my baseball cap off and I put my hand to my head, and I'm like, "Gosh, it's, like, really gushy here," and I'm like, I look at my hand, and it's all covered from my hand to my arm to my shoulder, all in blood. And I'm
mm.
going, "Am I feeling my brain right here?" And as somebody who has literally dissected brains, lots of them, I know what brain feels like, so I'm like, "What is going on here?" And so all I did was I called 911 because I honestly, I didn't know what happened. I had my phone on me, we're pretty trained to call 911. And so while I was waiting for the ambulance to come get me, this guy comes up to me and he goes, "Did I just hit you in the head with my golf ball?"
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm like, "I'm sorry, but where is the golf ball?" So he was playing golf on a golf course behind a house and hit an errant golf ball that went off the course, past there was no way for me to see it unless I have eyes on the back of my head, off the course onto the street, and it hit me in the left temporoparietal region. And it didn't just hit me, it was going 150 miles an hour. It hit me and then bounced another 50 yards in.
Wow.
And you might be thinking, "Oh, well, everybody gets hit by something every now and then." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but the brain lives in a cavity, like in the skull, where there's only some CSF fluid for it to get
Mhm.
shaken up." So I was rushed to emergency room and, got all the imaging, the CAT scan, had to get sutured up and, all this stuff. And the ER physician basically was like, "Oh, go sleep it off and follow
Mhm.
up with your doctor the next day." And me as a physician, I'm going, "Oh my god, I have to go make brain-derived neurotropic factor." Like sleep will not do that, right? But what happened afterwards was a consequence of neuroinflammation. And what I experienced then, and mind you, I had no health problems before that, like nothing, not on any medication, nothing, zero, right? Literally the next day, I wake up and I'm not speaking properly like the way I used to. I'm not able to type or write. I'm dropping words. My balance is completely off. So I mean, the number of times I fainted, the ball hit me so hard that I suffered 3 cervical disc herniations. So then I ended up with chronic pain down my neck and my right arm. Had sleep issues, had forgetfulness, focus issues. I mean, I burned a lot of pots and pans in the upcoming, like, weeks and months. I had to basically retrain my body to function again, like, the feet up from the head down, had to retrain it, and, I did a lot of physical therapy, but when it came to some of the symptoms, like the memory loss and the focus issues and the pain, and forget the fact that you also have trauma from not just the ball, but now you're afraid to step outside because I was literally blindsided, right? So now I'm like, "Oh, anything can happen. I don't even want to leave my house," right? So now we've got this whole like fear of, oh, you know, I'm sure anybody who's either been in a car accident, had a sports injury, like if something's coming at them, they have this like kind of response in their body where it's like, oh. When I was going to all the specialists, mostly what I was offered was a lot of medications, meaning, oh, we can give you ADHD meds and Alzheimer's meds and Parkinson's meds and anxiety meds and antidepressants and pain meds and all of this. And I've never been one to react very well to medications, and I'm like, "That just that doesn't feel right to me because medications are gonna suppress my symptoms." So, I had to tune into, the fact that I have 5 medical board certifications, so somewhere along the way, I learned, how am I going to repair my body? How am I going to repair my cells? How am I going to make new neurons? How am I going to make new mitochondria for my chronic fatigue? How am I going to do all this? And so I tapped into that. So, already nutrition is a key part of it. And, my nutrition was already really quite good, but I did step it up. I tapped into all the lifestyle things. But one of the things I did do is I did end up taking a lot of supplements because I'm trained in supplements. So I'm like, at one point I was taking 30 pills and I'm like, okay, this stuff is working. The ingredients in here are really working. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be standing here right now if it wasn't for the different things I did in my lifestyle. A big part of that is the gut microbiome, because if you have neuroinflammation, you then develop gut inflammation, and gut inflammation is a cascade of its own of inflammatory compounds throughout the body. What I was doing in that time was really determining, how can I, as an expert on cellular health who's been looking at cells under the microscope for decades, and I don't need a microscope to know what's going on inside my cells, like I can feel it. Like, how am I going to repair these cells? And that's really, that happened in 2020, but that's what I spent those next few years doing.
How many years do you feel like you really had to hone in on nutrition, gut balance to really get the inflammation in the neurons quieted down? I think that's so important because there's so many things out there that make it sound like everything is just a quick fix.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people to really hear, sometimes you've really got to put some time into your journey. So,
Yeah.
how long was that for you?
I would say, just like any health journey, there were good weeks and then there was bad weeks. Like, like, I would say definitely the first 2 years were awful. The first 4 years, there was a lot of, stuff going on in the sense of really active support. I would say the last 2 years is where I kind of start feeling like, okay, I'm beginning to feel like myself again, but it's not like I'm my old self. I have my new version, in the sense of, I know what my body can handle. I know how to support my body. And I think that journey is going to be different for everybody. I mean, I honestly think my journey was a lot quicker because I was able to get on my protocol, like my supplement protocol, my nutrition protocol, literally right away, because I'm trained in it. And even when I was going to, like, the top specialists in the country that, have taken care of, football teams, like, things like that, they even said to me, they're like, "You know more about nutrition and supplementation than we do." Like, and I'm like, "I just need somebody to help me." And then basically everybody was like, "You actually know more than we know." So it was put back in me to help myself. And there are days where I'm like, "Oh, I'm tired," but then I'm like, "Oh, what didn't I do that I know can support my body?" Because it's like, once you kinda start understanding, and I always use this as my, like, little, like, thing, like, I always pull up, like, we have these cells in our body, right? And we've got trillions of them. They all need support, and if we are not giving the cells what they need, they don't function. And like I said, I had chronic fatigue where I was walking 4 to 5 miles, and then I went down to, like, literally walking to the mailbox and walking back because, my mitochondria, the little organelles inside each and every one of these cells, was not doing what it needed to do.
Well, I tell you, first of all, I look at traumatic brain injury as the invisible injury. A lot of people see you on the outside and think you're absolutely fine, but the struggle is real for somebody that has actually experienced that kind of an injury to their brain. And
Laura, I
Mhm.
think that is a key point that I did not mention, because everybody did think I was fine on the outside, because they're not seeing it. Yeah, I mean, if you look really close, you can see where the suture and the scar and all that is, but because I don't have, like, a cast on, or, like, they're like, "Oh, you're fine," but honestly, like, anybody who suffered, even if it's a mild traumatic brain injury, they know that something is not feeling right, and to have somebody go, "Oh, but you look fine." When you know, like, I know when I go back and look at some of the talks or presentations, I can see where my words will slow down because my body is, like, emotionally and physically fatigued, like, I start slurring my words, like, I can see it, you know? At that time also, I had developed tinnitus and ear ringing and pressure in my ears, and I remember I went to the ENT and they're like, with traumatic brain injuries, develop, like, light sensitivity, so basically, I could not be with any lights above, like, walking into an office or anything like that, like, even going to a doctor's office, I'm like, "You gotta turn the lights off because, like, I'm so sensitive to this." Super sensitive to hearing, so no loud sounds. I mean, trying to get an MRI out of me was, because you hear the bang, bang, bang with the MRI. I mean, that was, like,
Traumatic
painful.
in and of
Yeah,
itself.
in itself. You'd be surprised, more people than not, because after this happened, when I was working with my patients, I would talk to them and I'd be like, "Hey, when you were a kid, did you ever, like, have, like, a sports injury or, like, a car accident, anything like that?" And when I'm working with my patients, which my focus is gut health and longevity now, and I talk to them, a lot of their health issues started back when they had those injuries, and nobody ever connected that for them.
And that's a really interesting point too, especially when we think about what's the acronym for reoccurrent traumatic encephalitis, the CTE? You think about these reoccurring chronic, that's what it is, chronic, when they are have these kids having repetitive mild concussions or even just a hit in the head, but it's accumulative because so many times nobody is actually addressing the initial one, which really should have put them on a pause button until they had met certain criterion that really showed that that inflammation had changed.
And
But
and I think what you say, like, the cumulative part of it is very, very true because one traumatic brain injury slash concussion actually will increase your risk of another one in the future. And then those increased TBIs also increase your risk of developing Alzheimer's later in life. Right. So to me, I'm going, oh my God, now this one Saturday morning, all of a sudden now my body is more likely, if I don't do the things that I need to do to protect my gut and my brain, higher percentage of likelihood of developing this. And I think we don't think far enough into the future. We kind of just look at what is the immediate, like, oh, okay, you're fine. Doctor sent you home. You take some of this and then get back to the busy lives that we have. And once again, like I say, for me, my philosophy has always been hashtag self care is self care. So because, like I said, I've looked at all these thousands and millions of cells under the microscope, I'm always focused on how can we protect each and every one of our cells and still live the life that we're living. But there is a support that we need.
well, and a lot of the low level investigation for head injury is going to be like an x-ray. And oftentimes you're not going to see any of this trauma, especially like if you go from the car accident to the ER, a lot of that doesn't show up in that first hour or two. Sometimes these things are not showing up for even days. And we are really just dismissing without the right quantifiable evidence what's really going on for an individual. And so I think that the whole thing needs to be redone. An x-ray shouldn't be anything that should even be done for days. What would be a gold standard of evaluating somebody to say, based on what you've reported, you had a golf ball hit you in the head. We need to quantify that neuroinflammation is going on. We need to quantify what's your state of health that is going to allow you to heal properly. Don't you think we need to kind of revamp how we're investigating this?
I do think that needs to be revisited, and we do have the beauty of having so many diagnostic tests available now, from different imaging, but one of the things I would say in the last decade that is newer is some of our functional tests, right? So we can see the status of our gut microbiome. We can see how much mitochondrial dysfunction we have. We can see how much oxidative stress we've been exposed to. So I don't think it's one or the other. It's we technically have a lot more we can do now to get a full picture, and that's where I think preventative health really plays a role is
Well,
you
sure, but,
have
like,
your
in the acute
baseline stuff.
situation like,
Yeah.
in the acute situation, nobody's looking at those tests,
Yeah.
and then people have to go try to find somebody that's gonna do it. Of course, there's a lot of wonderful tests out there, but I just, like I'm thinking about so many children that have had repetitive concussion. And, there's plenty of literature now that talks about how it's even creating this mood disorder. They're becoming depressed. And to me, it would be great if we were looking at things far more ahead of time than we get to a point that it's almost too big for people to manage. And then it's like, okay, I did everything everybody told me to do in the acute phase. I'm still no better. So now what am I going to do? And it would be great if we had some kind of standard of care that
I
knew
think
these things
part
were
of
going to
that is
happen.
the overall lifestyle and people understanding that, you know, when I went to school, we had home ec, we had all these different classes. I don't, and now everything is just literally on a computer, and people don't know how to make their next meal. They don't know how to do these like life things. And that's always going to be, in my experience, like kind of building the foundation back for your body is, the way you move your body, the way you fuel it, the way you do your sleep, all of that. We're kind of living in this world where we're still in that outer layer. We can't even get into that deeper healing of that response because we're so focused on the outside of, oh, we need to go do this and we need to go do that. And I think once we kind of understand, and this is really what I do with my patients is I teach them how does your body work. I'm like literally putting them through med school in 6 months of a program so they know how their body works, because then they can start identifying what's not normal. So instead of going, oh, my kid is always irritable, or he just behaves differently, and we just like make excuses and accept it like, oh, because somebody put a diagnosis on it, instead of going, oh, well, you know what? Maybe this individual needs this kind of support.
That's pretty much how I run my office as well. Well, you have some really good thoughts too on what parents can do to help their kids. What's going on in the nervous system, especially like if you're scheduled and you're going from one place to another. Why don't we take a little bit of time and talk about some parental support for kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of like to think of it this way. It's like, what is actually happening in the nervous system when we have a brain that's being triggered by, let's just use an example of travel, whether you're traveling for the weekend away, a sports game after school, whatever it might be, it doesn't need to be
Mhm.
like any like fancy international travel or anything like that. But why is it that a child might have a meltdown as opposed to somebody else? And, we might see this very often, like on an airplane. Like I see all these kind of videos online. I'm like, oh, this child wasn't being quiet on an airplane. And they're like, people commenting like, oh, you shouldn't bring your child with you if you're flying, if they're not like trained. But the thing that I think most people don't understand is that there are several stressors going on for children
Mhm.
that their brain has not even developed. Okay. So it's not even humanly possible for them to address them. And some of those stressors might be things like Okay, you've got new sounds, right? So you can imagine airports, like train stations, even a weekend at Costco. How many different sounds are there, right? Like there's all
Oh,
this overhead stuff, right? You got new smells going on. You've got sensory of all these extra people. So you've taken your child out of the house and now they're surrounded by all these people. You have lighting that's not their normal, right? You might have the loss of the regular routine anchors, like they might at home have their normal breakfast, at school, their lunch, and their dinner when they come home. But now, if you're like going here and there, you're like, oh, let's go pick up this. And their microbiome isn't keeping up, right? Then they have the physical stress, whether that is just from, I notice nowadays I'm seeing a lot more kids get car sickness, or cabin pressure. Maybe they're dehydrated, right? So some of these things, we've got all this overstimulation and sensory stressors all at once, right? So the brain is literally seeing this as a threat because it's all these stacked things, right? And now you have this kid who might only be 11, 12 years old and their cortisol levels are high. We shouldn't be like giving them more reasons to have their cortisol levels or their stress hormone levels higher. Now, in an adult, which is pretty fascinating because technically an adult's prefrontal cortex, which can address that this is happening and identify it and plan for this and they have their so-called impulse control technically developed. They can take that alarm signal and go, oh, it's not bad. But guess what? Have you ever seen people? They don't really travel well or deal with stress very well. So now, if you can't ask an adult to do it and now you're asking a child whose anatomy can't do it, you're actually asking something that is not possible.
yeah,
And
I
we do
couldn't
it.
couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. I 95% of my practice is children, so I see it all the time. There's a lot of things today more so than especially when I was a kid, but there are just too many things that are dysregulating them, and I do think it's too much, and it's great to be aware of it, but it's also becomes overwhelming for
Mhm.
parents to try to how do I regulate this child? How do
Mm,
I help them go from point A to point B? And you might be working on a deep program, a long-standing program, but like day in, day out, I think there's a huge struggle today, so much for parents trying to help children and children. The numbers are just incredible of how many kids just are not moving in the direction that they're supposed to.
and I think about it this way, like, children model what you do as an
Oh,
adult,
sure.
right?
Mhm.
So I think about like my niece and nephew, and I'm like, okay, I know that when I'm with them, I'm always like, "All right, how can we just have, like, quiet time?" Because I like, as somebody who suffered from a TBI, I'm like, I just like peace and quiet, right? So I'm like but it's a matter of training them to go, "All right, it's okay to, like, not have a TV on in the background or an iPad running or always have a phone in your hand." And I think it's a matter of, okay, are you training the kid to always want, like, this stimulation? Because then when they don't have it, it's like another kind of meltdown, right? But if you kind of train them in a way that and this is really about being more intentional about what is going to be good for my child's overall brain development. All right. I know in schools now everything is on computer, they're doing everything like remotely and, all kinds of things. But thinking about the way, like, when we were kids and how we would learn, like, we literally have textbooks and notebooks and pens and pencils, and a child's brain actually just like, I mean, I still do it. I will rewrite entire textbooks when I'm trying to learn something. Like that, how my brain
That's
has
the way I did it too. I had to
and
rewrite
science
everything.
actually tells you you will remember things. The research tells
Yes.
you that you will remember things that way better. But we started taking away all those things that we know can help a child's brain develop, and we've just put things in front of them that
Mhm. You just
I
have to
think
press a button.
personally it's influencing them and slowing development.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always talk about I bring up the picture of the homunculus, and the homunculus for the audience, you can Google that word for yourself,
You might
but
wanna spell it for them. It's a big
yeah,
word.
we'll put you know what? I've put it in the show notes before, so I'll do it again. But it's part of your sensory motor cortex, and your whole body is mapped out on it. And you look at it for the size of the body part, and that is the greatest influence coming from that area. And the face, the tongue, the hands are huge on the homunculus. And this is exactly why it is so important that children crawl, get into their hands, why it's important for them to have things in their hands so that they can go to the pincer grip. And if we remove all that with a keypad, that is not fine motor movement. So there is such a gift. And here's a little trick I recently learned, which I absolutely love, is taking a book, and you might want to do this from your brain injury, is the left side of your brain is your intellectual, your reasoning, your details. The right side of your brain is your creative, your big muscles, the big picture. So you take an open book. Maybe you write your goals on the left and then you draw a picture on the right. And now you're literally putting these pieces together in your brain. So, those are the kinds of things that I think might be really beneficial too for parents to put some of these tangible items
Mhm.
back into the hands of their children. And then your legs, if you look at the homunculus, it's in the middle of both sides, and so the legs are connecting both sides of the brain, and this is why we've gotta get people moving. You
Mhm.
gotta move, you gotta move. Well, I know that you've also got a book.
Mhm.
I want you to spend some time on your book and your supplements.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah.
the audience about your stuff.
All right, perfect. So my book is called The Anatomy of Well-Being. It's a bestseller in My Body Medicine, and it's the book you read before you read the other health books because what it does is it walks you through how does the human body work? Like, okay, how does my digestion work? How does my sleep work? How does movement actually work? Before you go, oh, I need to do this diet or I need to do this exercise because if you can't understand what's going on, then you're going to go through years and decades of not knowing how your body functions and just trying stuff. So I always say, read this book before. And I like to put things into the perspective of creating lifestyle rituals around it, like practices that you do because we all fail at our habits of, oh, we need to eat this many veggies or we need to go to the gym this many times a week. And it's really bad for our self esteem. But if we can wake up every single day and go, all right, I'm in touch with my body. What does my body need today to have the best day? And I would love to see, like, parents training their kids in this way, like, okay, the kid woke up. Maybe they didn't sleep well because their nose was stuffy, and now they're like but for the kid to kinda go, "All right, mom, I need this," or, like, just starting to, like, teach our kids, like, the body how it works, Like, we don't have anatomy class like that young, and we really should. So that's really what my book is about, and it is on audiobook, but I definitely recommend the paper version because it's one of those, like, handbooks where you're gonna literally go and highlight and be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna go try this." But I had mentioned that during my injury, part of my protocol and regimen was supplementation, and at one point, I was on 30 different supplements to repair my brain, to lower the inflammation, to address the chronic fatigue, to address the pain, all the stuff. And I honestly got supplement fatigue. And I'm like, listen, I know better. I know the way cells work. I know what they need. So I created, so it's a custom formulation and it's the first physician formulated supplement. Here it is. It's called Trivella Essentials. It's the first physician created supplement that combines botanical intelligence. So, really using botanicals that have been studied for centuries to increase circulation in the body, improve endothelial cells, to improve, neural communication, to create and modulate the stress response, to, help your body protect your immune system. So it's the first one that has that botanical intelligence, but then also has the bioactives that we now know in longevity science to protect our cells, to create more mitochondria like PQQ, and master antioxidants like glutathione and things like CoQ10 and resveratrol and magnesium bisglycinate and methylated B12. So all the things that I know many people, even if they have not had a brain injury, because I've tested so many people, have challenges with this, from an oxidative stress level, from a mitochondrial function level, from an immunity, from a gut health. All of this, I basically combined into one supplement. So it's been like a passion project, but it's something I've been taking myself for close to 2 years, and I know if there's a day I don't take it, my brain is not as focused, my energy is not as good, my day is a lot harder.
That is so exciting. And tell everybody how they find you.
So my website and social is all the same. It's drbhanote.com. So DRBHANOTE.com, and Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest. It's Dr. Bhanote. I send out a weekly newsletter. Always include a amazing, quick, easy recipe in there, but
Oh,
really
good.
teaching the science of how these different things work and making it so simple that you can take those and start repairing your cells right away. And for our supplement, it is on travellawellness.com. So like
Okay, great.
travel a
We'll
wellness.
make sure that all that goes in the show notes too. Well, that's wonderful. Now, you said one thing that I think would be a great way to wrap up our time together. And you said that you should begin to create daily rituals for yourself. So
Mhm.
why don't you share one of your rituals with our
Mm.
audience?
What got me into this trouble was my morning walks. But
Well,
my ritual is morning, getting outside, getting,
Mm,
sunlight, getting daylight, and doing my morning walk. That kind of really sets the tone for the day. Yeah, I kinda laugh because nowadays I might not be listening to audiobooks or podcasts. Now I'm, like, listening for everything that's going on
there's
around me.
something coming through the air.
Yeah, but when that happened, the book that I was listening to was Jim Quick's Limitless, which is about making your brain limitless, right? So the
Oh,
irony in that is
yes,
just,
yes, there is. Yes,
um,
there is.
so, I mean, I have many rituals. They're seasonal. They're, based off of what's going on. But I think getting outside and being in nature is a no-brainer.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. You had so much information, and it's one of the things that I've really grown to love doing these podcasts is there is a personal story with everyone that literally has brought them to where they are today and the contribution that they are making in the world to health, to how we can better ourselves. So thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, listen, I know out there this is a great topic to share. Rather, we're talking about an adult that had a TBI or a child that has experienced repetitive head injuries. This is something to really bring forward. So, if you know someone that has experienced this, please share this podcast. Share our podcast with your community so that we can continue to support the world in better health choices. And remember, here at Connect My Child's Brain, Connect My Brain, that's the website, connectmybrain.com. If you have a question or you just want to get further information, you can go on the website, you can schedule a complimentary consultation, and I myself will give you a call back. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And as always, be blessed. Thanks for listening. I hope today's lesson will help you or someone you love. Do you have a question or just really want to talk to somebody about brains? Connect with me over on Facebook or Instagram at Connect My Brain. Looking to understand and optimize your particular brain? Check out connectmybrain.com for course information and resources. See you next class.